Funded Today Nation, welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. Last time, as you might recall, we talked about Facebook advertising. I personally grilled Thomas on his experience managing millions of dollars in ad spend. If you want the best intro you could ever have to Facebook marketing, check that one out. It's a can't miss episode. Today, we are going to be talking about goal setting. I've spent a lot of time reading about goals, and so has Thomas. In fact, he focused some of his master's degree studies on goal setting. And today we are going to take you on a slightly different journey. We aren't going to talk about what the academics, PhDs, or pundits say. Instead, Thomas and I are going to show you how we actually set and achieve goals for our own personal and business lives to reach the success we've had and how you can do it too.
The Funded Today podcast is hosted by world-renowned entrepreneurs and business experts Thomas Alvord and Zach Smith. To get help with your next big business idea or to take your business to the next level, go to fundedtoday.com.
Welcome back to the Funded Today podcast. I am Zach Smith.
And I'm Thomas Alvord.
And in our last episode, we talked about Facebook advertising. If you want a college education directly from the master himself, Mr. Thomas Alvord, that will be a good hour of your time well spent. Now, on to today's masterclass. This is a special episode because in addition to the podcast, we are sharing our computer screens, and there are some visuals that are going to go along with this recording. So if you watch the podcast, it's going to be a lot easier on this episode to follow along. So feel free to continue listening. We'll try to do our best to explain some things, or you can visit and follow along with a video presentation of this podcast at funded.today/podcast/goals to watch the video. Again, that URL is funded.today/podcast/goals. To get started, you might find it strange that we're over a month into the new year already, and yet we're talking about goal setting? But actually, it's not strange at all.
Whenever the new year rolls around and I hear people talking about goal setting, it kind of makes me squirm in my seat and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable because I think if you're setting goals right now at the beginning of the year, most likely you're not going to hit any of your goals. You're either always setting goals or you're in the habit of setting goals, or you set goals when you need to take you to the next level. And so if you're just doing it because the new year is rolling around, it's not as likely to stick. Basically, you're just doing it because it's the new year and not because you actually have a habit or you're trying to create a habit. So that's why goal setting, often we think about it being the new year, but it doesn't have to be. And that's actually one of the principles we'll talk about.
It reminds me of when you go to the gym. And for that first week or two, I don't even know if it's 2 weeks anymore, you'll have 100 people in your gym at any given time, and then they are all gone. And it's because exactly what Thomas said. Everybody pictures a new year, new me, but then they just fall off the train because they haven't developed the principles that we're going to talk about. You might have heard of this before. We've added on a little bit more. I love Michael Hyatt and his best year ever, and he added on smarter. He got it, the ER part. But very, very briefly, specific. Your goals need to be specific. They can't be too broad or general. They need substance to them. They need to be measurable. You need to be able to see if you're making progress, and how you do this matters. They need to be actionable. Simply make your goals start with a verb. Do, buy, own, get. Because that way, you have some sort of action that is going to motivate you to do the goal that you set. They need to be a little bit risky. That's the R. Your goals need some element that are going to demand your best effort. Otherwise, they're not really goals. They're just things that are going to happen anyway. They need to be time restricted. You need to assign weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly dates for when you're going to get these things done. Otherwise, they're not a goal. They're just something that is floating around and never going to be measured and never going to be restricted by time, so you can figure out where you're going and what you're going to achieve. And then they need to be exciting. Your goals need to make you want to get up out of bed in the morning. I put that in specifically because if you are not excited to wake up, if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, whatever, sometimes setting some exciting goals can really help with that. I found that in my own life to be the case. And then finally, they need to be relevant. They need to be centered around your life as it is now or as you want your life to be. Otherwise, you're going to be setting goals that simply will not relate to you. And because you'll have that dissonance, you won't achieve your goals. And that is the smarter framework. And finally, one more point I want to add. When you set your goals, I believe in something called holistic harmonization. And we'll probably talk about that in a future episode. But it's like a piano. When you're playing piano, you're playing a musical instrument. When all of the keys are played together, they can sound very beautiful. I don't believe that life is black and white in terms of a teeter-totter. I hate the word balance, for example. I need to find balance. I don't like balance at all. I like harmonization. and I like it holistically, meaning covering all the elements of my life. And therefore, when I set goals, I like to set physical goals, intellectual goals, social goals, financial goals, spiritual goals, marital goals, parental goals, vocational goals, avocational goals, emotional goals, recreational goals, and so on. And that's how I would recommend you setting smarter goals as well, because when you can have holistic harmonization, you can have true happiness. And isn't that what it's all about?
Absolutely. And those principles for SMART goals or smarter goals, and if you look online, you can read more about them. They are very effective tools for setting good goals. But even in my own practice of setting goals, that's not always what I do. I don't follow all of those principles. And so these are 8 principles, kind of getting into the meat now of how I set goals, how Zach sets goals, and looking at what Zach does, looking at what I do. And it's interesting to see how much of what we both do, setting goals, independent of one another, but then talking about our goals and seeing how we're being accountable, seeing how similar it is.
That's what was amazing, right, Thomas? I mean, when you and I first chatted, the funniest thing was we weren't planning on doing this episode, but we said, hey, what are your goals and what are my goals? And then we broke out the ways that we set goals, and we were just smiling because we're like, holy cow, the way we go about it is very, very similar, and yet we have our own unique patterns to do it. And that made us and inspired us to create this episode for you.
And one of the things that you and I both believe in, and we've said this before, is to just set goals and write them down. If you do that, that's 50% of the work.
80-20.
Yeah, there you go.
Right there for you.
It's 80% of the benefit with only 20% of the work. No joke. There's something about setting it down that it gets out of your mind. You're making a statement that this is what you're going to do. It makes it more real. So if you don't have any goals written down, you could even stop this podcast. Set some goals. Even if you have them in your head, go write them down. Zach will tell you, and I think it bugs him, well, I'll have an idea. And he's like, hey, have you written that down? And I say, no, I got it in my mind and in my heart. I'm not going to forget, which is actually stupid because I will forget stuff, right? So even though you might think, oh, I have the goal in my head or I know what I'm working for, just write it down.
And to Thomas's credit, he has been amazing at starting to write things down and get things going. And we've seen great progress together as he started to apply that principle himself.
Write down your goals if you haven't already. Get them out of your head.
Unwritten goals are just so hard to track. Principle number 1, set your goals, just write them down. Number 2 is don't wait until the new year. Thomas hinted on this one a little bit earlier. I hate the idea of New Year's resolutions because why do you need to do New Year's resolutions? You need to do something now, today. You don't need to wait. Oh no, it's February, it's March, whatever time it is you're listening to this podcast. That doesn't matter. Set your goals now and coordinate them for the rest of the year. Coordinate them for the week, the month, the quarter. Don't wait until the new year because that's just procrastination. And procrastination makes everything slow down. It makes you get nothing done. It makes you create excuses. Don't wait until the new year. Principle number 3, Thomas.
You have to review your goals regularly. If you write down your goals, again, like we said, there's a huge benefit. Just do that. Even if you don't review them. This has happened to me. It's happened to Zach. A year later, or even 2 or 3 years later, we look and say, oh, I wrote this down, or it was some goals I had with my wife. And we look and we say, wow, we actually got like 40% or 60% of this done. I did not even realize that we were knocking all these goals out. So it's amazing what happens, even if you're not reviewing them and you misplace them. There's a quote by someone who once said, that which we measure. How does that go, Zach?
When performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement accelerates. I'll say it again. When performance is measured, performance improves. When performance is measured and reported, the rate of improvement, it doesn't just get better. What does it do? It accelerates. I love that.
And part of it is because you're analyzing throughout the process of working towards your goal where you're at. And it helps you think what's working, what's not working. And instead of just being in a habit of doing or not doing whatever it is, you actually are thinking and changing your behavior, changing your attitudes, changing your mentality, changing what you're working on so you can actually move on to the next level. So you have to review your goals. And that's one of the parts where you'll see how Zach and I both set our goals. We both have built-in mechanisms for reviewing what we're doing, although it's completely different.
Yeah, later on in this podcast, we're going to get really transparent and really vulnerable with all of you, our Funded Today listeners. We're going to share with you all of our goals and how we actually accomplish and achieve those goals. A couple tips on this one specifically, because we've gotten better at it as the years have gone on. The way we review our goals, well, I put my goals on my phone. So I literally created a little clickable link. I just opened up a Chrome tab, and then I clicked add to home screen, and it creates a little button just like an app. And you can click that button and pull up your goals with one click from Google Docs or wherever you like to do your goals. That's a great trick. The other thing we do is we will have our goals in front of us. So on my tabs, in my bookmark, I have my 2019 goals, and then I have my January specific goals. And these are clickable links right within my Google Chrome browser where I can grab them. And then most importantly, I set regular appointments with myself to review my goals. For me, it's just a Sunday afternoon, and I look back on the last week and I check in and I see how I'm doing with my goals and I update them accordingly. Now, the next thing about reviewing your goals is to print them off.
There's something about not having it digitally, where you have it in a physical form, that you can see them, that you can write on them. And so that's what I did. That's what you did without us
yeah, we did.
realizing.
And we are digital nomads. Like, we hate paper. We hate carrying things around. We love everything on the cloud. We're master note takers and Google Keep and all kinds of different things, but we print them off. We don't just print them off one time. I have them on a mirror that I see. I have them when I wake up in the morning. I have them everywhere, so they're front and center of my mind, so that I make sure that I am not losing track of what I actually wanted to accomplish this year when I set my goals. Printing them off matters.
And Zach, I print one sheet of some KPIs or key performance indicators that I review at the end of every day. And for the last however long, every night, I review those. And another thing I want to stress here is these are things that I do. It's what you do, Zach, but we don't do the same things, but it has a similar rhyme.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And people don't need to feel, oh, I have to do it exactly
That'll
like
get you
this.
stuck. That'll
because
get you stuck.
If I were to sit down and do the goals like you do, it wouldn't fit how I like to do things. It wouldn't fit my personality. Although maybe somebody has no framework or no baseline and they're like, hey, just whatever, right? And so they can implement something. So we want these ideas or these principles to be ideas for you for things you could do that maybe you're not doing with goal setting, or if you're starting with a tabula rasa or a blank slate, that you can just go and be effective at setting goals.
And another inspiration for this episode was we always like to learn from people who maybe have achieved things bigger and greater than we have. And we thought, well, we should share what we're doing because we're accomplishing a lot of goals. We've done quite a bit in a short amount of time. And so we titled this episode, How to Set and Achieve Goals Like Multimillionaires, because we thought this could probably help out a lot of people. But Thomas is exactly right. Do not procrastinate. Just get some things done. Whether you take 1 or 8 of these principles and apply them, you're going to see better results than you're getting right now if you just go and do them. Do not use the excuse that I got to do all this stuff and I got to do all this thinking and all of this other stuff. You'll get better and you'll refine your process and system just like we've done over the years if you just go and do it.
You know, Zach, it was a while back, I guess. I was talking to somebody, they recommended a book on meditating. And I read through that and there was a lot of different things, but I took one thing out of it. And I know this is more like a conclusion, right? But I really want to stress this, right? Because I think often I might read a book, I might listen to a podcast, I might read an article, and I learn a handful of different things, but then I don't really change my behavior, right? So if you're setting goals, just take one of these principles. Or if you're not setting goals, really, just go write them down, and you're going to be 80% better off.
Absolutely. All right. Principle number 5. This one's big. This one may be the most important goal, even though we kind of lodged it in the middle. Know your why, know your who. This is the whole idea that I kind of talked about earlier when I said you have to set goals that are exciting, that make you want to get up out of bed in the morning. And this is why. And you'll notice when you go through my goals and Thomas's goals that we have our why and our who figured out. If you set a goal that says, I want to be able to bench press 315 pounds by December 31st, 2019. Why? When you're in the gym struggling on a February afternoon, maybe it's cold, it's really cold where we're at most of the time. Are you going to be able to wake up? Are you going to be able to go to the gym? Are you going to be able to do what you want to do if you don't know your why? What's your why? Why did you set this goal in the first place? Because I guarantee you are going to hate going to the gym if you haven't been in a while, or if you're struggling, or if you're tired or if you've got other things to do, if you don't have a why. What's your why? Is it so that you can be around for your daughter's wedding? Is it so that you can have a healthy body and live a long and healthy life and potentially avoid obesity and some of the other elements that kind of plague the world nowadays? And then what's your who? Who are you doing it for? Again, your daughter's wedding, your wife, your family, for yourself, so you can have confidence. Whatever it is, you've got to write these things down and be very clear for every single goal. You'll need a why and a who. And believe me, I have already applied this myself a bunch this year. And you'll see some of my goals. You'll be like, those are strange goals or those are weird goals. But when you see my why or who, you're like, oh, okay, I see why he's doing it. Because I've been like, oh man, I'm falling behind. I got to do this. But then in the back of my mind, or as I pull my goals up and I review them and I review my why and my who, it motivates me so that I can continue to stay on track with my goals and get them done. If I didn't have my why and my who, I'd just be in the gym lifting. I would just be memorizing things and not really understanding why I'm doing it. And I guarantee you, I would fall off that wagon very quickly. Know your why, know your who. Thomas, anything else to add to that one?
I remember when you shared this with me in preparation for this podcast, I was thinking, I don't really do that. I don't know how critical that is, but again, to each their own, right? It's not always going to be the same. But as I thought about it and hearing you speak, I actually do have my why, my who a little bit, but I know my why. I just didn't articulate it or write it down in my goals. But my why was very clearly just reviewing the last 12 months or so and seeing how things have gone and thinking I could be so much more productive and accomplish so much more. And it's because I'm kind of like a ship without a rudder. I just kind of go wherever, which I get stuff done. But if you can be focused, I remember somebody sharing once, what's the difference between, and I forget which rivers it was. I think it was like the Amazon and maybe some river in Colorado. Again, I can't remember, right? And you have a river that has so much more power and force, right? That is so much smaller than the Amazon River in terms of the amount of water, but it's because it's so focused, right? That it becomes so powerful that it can do amazing things. So that's kind of how I felt for myself. What is my why? And so every day when I'm waking up every day at 6, right? Because my whole life is kind of didn't really have a schedule when, my third kid was born and waking up. And so I kind of just took life as it came. So then I didn't really have a schedule, and waking up at 6 isn't my favorite thing, and forcing myself to go to bed at 10 when I don't need to. Right. But it's having that why, saying, no, I'm going to be focused. I'm going to be productive. I'm going to accomplish more. And having that has actually been the motivating factor. If it wasn't for the why, I wouldn't be doing it.
And that's such a great metaphor. I love that. You have now proactively taken control of your life. You have shown that you can be acted rather than acted upon, and to show that you have some control over what happens in your life. And I think when you can take a little bit of control and realize there's still going to be things you cannot control, and the whole Stoic philosophy, memento mori, or you could leave life right now, understanding that, but realizing you can still have control over some things, you will feel so much more confidence to be able to go out and achieve the things that you have set forth to achieve. I love that.
We didn't write this down, but I love what you just said, Zach. It's feeling that you're in control or thinking you're in control. Because sometimes I even set goals. We run into this, setting goals for ourselves or for Funded Today, where you say, well, I don't know what we're going to hit. I don't know what the market's going to do. And so you don't really set a goal. And I remember, and I think I shared this with you before, Zach, somebody was sharing, or I think it was in this book on habits that I was reading, where the person was saying anything bad that happens to you, or anything that's bad that happens that you're a part of, assume that it was 100% your fault. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. It doesn't matter. Just assume it was 100% your fault, or is 100% your fault. Because when you do that, it's going to change your mentality, and you're going to feel that you're in control. And maybe you're in control or you're not, but it's going to change how you look at things, and you're going to look at things and figure out what you can do, what you can change to actually obtain the results you want, or to stop something from happening once you have that mentality.
There's a truism that kind of goes with that, and it's give me the courage to accept the things I cannot change and to change the things that I can. And I think that's exactly right. I even carry a coin with me, and Thomas might not even know this, but it's kind of a philosophy called Stoicism. And the idea is we can have some measure of control of our lives, but we need to be able to accept the things that we can't and live life in the present, fully there, as much as we possibly can, because you could leave life right now, as the great Stoic Marcus Aurelius said. Realizing that, but realizing that we can have control, will give us the confidence to understand what's at stake, to feel what's at stake, as we know our why and as we know our who, so that we can connect emotionally and intellectually to the goals that we set. Very powerful. Number 6, be accountable for your goals. This one's real simple for me because I have a wife, and my wife is my accountability partner, and she does a pretty good job. I've had to tell her a couple times, hey, you gotta hold me true to these goals. You got to make it happen. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing bad? And those Sunday afternoons when we review the goals and get ready for the next week, she's there for me and I'm there for her. And then I'm also accountable to myself. Again, going back to principle 5, because I know my why, I know my who, and I take ownership and responsibility, like Thomas said. And even if I don't have control, I act as if I have 100% control and it's all on me. Going along that same line, when we set goals, and this is a fairly new focus for us even as well. It might feel like pie in the sky. How am I going to make this much money this year? How am I going to lose that much weight? How am I going to get that much stronger? You have to set it somewhere. You have to set it risky enough. You have to make it exciting enough. But what if it's too high? What if it's too whatever? We'll get to that. That's okay. But here's the deal. When you set these goals, you have to achieve these goals. You need to have a never say die attitude. And the way you do that is if things change. If my business completely died tomorrow and I suddenly did not have the income earning potential that I have to achieve the goals that I've set, I would not change my goal. I would change the strategy for achieving that goal. And I would still find a way to make it happen.
And the only way you can actually have that fortitude and that tenacity, I believe, is by knowing your why. Because when things are just not going your way and you're having to really put yourself out there or stress yourself or strain yourself, if you don't have a why, you're not going to do it. And you have to be accountable. And I love what you said about telling people your goals. We had lunch yesterday, Zach, you and me, with 2 other people who flew in who wanted to meet. And afterwards, you shared with me this project you're working on, which I won't reveal because you're keeping it secret right now, private, so to speak. But just you telling me that, what did I say? Oh, I have somebody here that will be able to help you. There's a nuance, right? It's different, right? Being accountable to somebody as well, as opposed to just telling somebody. If you talk about your goal, you're going to feel more accountable, but it's going to make things happen. It's going to open doors in ways you don't even realize or that you can't even conceive of right now. It's kind of crazy, but you'll talk to people and then so-and-so will hear from them or make some new connection or whatever. But you need to talk about your goals. If they're worthy having, they're worthy.
I love that. I'm so glad you brought that up because I had totally forgotten that. And I felt so good about that when I shared it with you too, because it literally opened a door I did not even know was there. And it wasn't just a door that opened. It was like the perfect door at the perfect time for that particular project that I'm working on. And I sometimes take it even a step further. I say, embarrass yourself. If you've got a goal, the reason you're setting that goal is because you're unhappy, you're unfulfilled, or you want more, or you want to achieve, or you want to do something better. Well, sometimes you have to embarrass yourself by telling people these goals, and that's perfectly fine. Because guess what? Once you've achieved your goal, it will no longer be embarrassing, and you can look back and talk about how you conquered that, how you climbed that mountain. And that is so, so important to do. And ready for this? Funded Today Nation, you are now kind of an accountability partner because we're going to be sharing our goals with you here in just a little bit. And you're going to help us achieve these goals. I don't know how or what, but for those of you listening, when you see the goals that we've set, we would love to hear from you. We would love for you to share some things that you see that we can do to achieve our goals. And if you share your goals with us, we will absolutely try to open doors for you so that you can achieve your goals as well. And with that, principle number 7, this is the great one. You got to set some lofty goals.
So David Ogilvy, who's considered the father of advertising, I have a few of his books, and he has so many punchy quotes in there. One of them is don't bunt, right? Talking about baseball. Obviously, and hopefully most people know baseball, but it's an international audience. So in baseball, the pitcher throws the ball and you can swing and you're trying to hit a home run or get to the base, but you can bunt, where you just put the bat out and you're just trying to knock the ball for just a little bit. He says, don't bunt. Aim out of the ballpark. Aim for the company of immortals. It's a beautiful, beautiful quote. So if you're going to have a goal, have something that's going to stretch you. And Ford, this may be my most favorite quote of all time. Henry Ford, the famous car maker. Whether you think you can't, or, well, I guess there's two ways you can say it, but whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. It is so beautiful, and it has so much power in that. If you think you can, you're probably right. If you think you can't, you're probably right. And when we set goals, set big goals. Now, set goals that actually are meaningful too, right? Oh, I want to have a company that's worth $1 billion in 5 years. I mean, that actually, I guess I should scratch that. I mean, that could be a goal if you really were diving deep.
Times and seasons, though, maybe 100 million in 5 years and $1 billion in 10. Like you've got to keep them relative to your life and where you want to be and where you're at now. Absolutely.
Right. So they want to be obtainable, but they should make you stretch. And part of setting big goals, I could set a goal to achieve X. And I could set a goal, or talking about business, I could have a goal to have a company doing $1 million in revenue next year, or have a goal, I'm going to do 50 million in revenue. And the thing is, whether you think you can or you can't, you're probably right. And when you set a bigger goal, and I learned this from Richard Koch, who's kind of one of my, I wouldn't say hero, but who I really like. When you set something that's just an incremental goal, you're not radically changing your thinking, right? You're basically doing the same thing. When you set really big goals, it's going to cause your mind to really churn, to really think, and it's going to cause you to take things to the next level.
That's exactly what you did at Funded Today. I remember we were looking at things and you said, what if we can get to $10 million in revenue? And we were doing maybe $100,000 a month or something. And I said, come on, you know what I mean? Like, I remember having the chat, but what happened? We got more than $10 million in revenue. The company became an 8-figure company. And that radical shift in mindset that you describe happened within me. And the way I go about setting goals is to set these goals a lot bigger than I ever did as well. Even though I'm probably way less of a dreamer and way more practical and way more of a realist and maybe even cynical and pessimistic as compared to you, even still, the way you have thought has inspired me and proven Ford's quote to be true. And I look at autobiographies and biographies that I've read, and I look at Steve Jobs. I remember reading an account in his book by Walter Isaacson where he said, make it happen. And everybody sitting here, their technology doesn't exist. The particular glass that we need to do what Jobs wants to do isn't around. He said, I don't care. Figure it out. Make it happen. And they did. For whatever reason, because he saw that vision, he had that thought inside of him, things that seemed practically impossible then are commonplace now. And you can look at that with all the people that changed the world. They thought they could, and they did. And you can too. Number 8, this is the last principle before we get into our goal setting. Have a morning routine. I'll start with this one briefly. Thomas has been doing this much longer than me, but this matters a bunch. Going on the principle of 80-20. If you can get done with most of your goals before you do anything else, you're already there. And a morning routine ensures that this happens. I have a rule where I try to take no appointments before 1 o'clock p.m. every day so that I can get done with everything that I need to do with the goals that I want to achieve for the year before I let my day be controlled by somebody else. My morning routine consists of, I think, 7 to 10 things that I do every single day. And I do those before I do anything else. Every single day, no matter what. Nothing gets in my way. And I've had to put this in place because I felt myself falling behind or not getting everything that I wanted done, or just having to rush and get it done at the end of the day. And that's not how you want your goals to be. Your goals should be the things that are exciting and inspire you to get things done. And your morning routine ensures that these are calendared, that they are planned out, that they happen before anything else, because you set these goals. These goals matter to you. If they didn't matter to you, you wouldn't have written them down. You wouldn't have set them. So don't let other things get in the way of you making it happen and achieving the goals that you set, and include them as much as you can in your morning routine. If your goal is to go to the gym, you better go to the gym in the morning. If your goal is to become more spiritual and meditate and pray, do it in the morning. All these things. If you want to read more, you better allocate some time in the morning to read. And you'll see that's exactly what my morning routine includes now. Thomas's morning routine, is also really good. Thomas, any other insights to share on that one?
This was one of the things when we both compared our goals and what we're doing that we both said, wow, that's incredible how we've set our morning routine. And again, it's going to be different for everybody. And it's not just us. You could take people like Jeff Bezos. If I'm not mistaken, he does not have anything before 12 o'clock. Or, excuse me, he tries to put all of his most important things in the morning, like his most
he has the
important
energy
meetings,
and passion.
right? Whatever the most critical things are, he's putting it in the morning. So his mind is the sharpest and is the most alert. So it's his best self, right? But having a morning routine for me, and when I don't hit it, it's kind of frustrating because when I review my KPIs at the end of every day, usually it's because my morning didn't start off right, or I had a meeting that for some reason the day started later. So then when I got to work, I jumped right in and I wasn't reading a business book or doing some other things that was helping me grow. And so having that morning routine is critical. And I know I've had morning routines on and off, but having a morning routine lately and really focusing on it has been a huge impact.
All right. Should we share some goals?
Let's do it.
These are my 2019 yearly personal goals, completely unfiltered. Goal 1, read or listen to 36 books. And again, I've structured these goals holistically for all the different areas in my life that I want to. Here's my why. I will read because I want to teach my children and impart my hard-won knowledge and wisdom to them. I want to read more because books are more heavily edited and therefore likely better in terms of content than blog posts and articles, etc. When you read a book versus something that was maybe put together really quickly or not a lot of time and effort was put into it, the substance isn't as great. And if the substance isn't as good, sometimes the quality of what you're learning isn't as good. I found that with scripture reading and reading the texts of autobiographies versus maybe a business book. I get a lot more out of things where I have to search for the knowledge and fight for it and win it than I do from doing other things. Goal 2, I'm going to weigh between 175 to 180 pounds, bench 250 pounds or more, and squat 350 pounds or more by December 31st, 2019. Do you see how I made that goal smart? How did I make it smarter to make it exciting and relevant? My why? Because I want the freedom to do what I want when I want. I want to be able to play a competitive game of soccer, run up and down the floor playing basketball and not have to sub out. I want to be able to dunk a basketball. I want to be able to do these things so I can be around for my children as well. And I don't want pain from different injuries and things that have crept up because I haven't taken care of myself as good as I would like to. Goal 3, I want to generate $8 million or more in revenue. And I want to net $2 million or more. Here's why. Because I want to be present in the lives of my children. I never want an excuse that I have to work or I can't be somewhere for them. I want to be able to have complete freedom to do whatever I want when I want. And when you have money, that is a huge luxury that comes with it. Goal 4, this is probably more of a emotional type goal, you could call it, or a spiritual goal. I want 15 to 20 minutes every day for reading, praying, and meditating. I want to connect more deeply with my wife. I want to do more studying of religious teachings and the religion that I believe in. Goal 5, here's the one that embarrasses me. I want to fix my OCD. And I want to stop biting or chewing on my fingernail beds and stop that stupid, terrible habit so I have perfect fingers. And I set this goal pretty quickly by January 31st because I don't want to feel embarrassed when I'm speaking around the world or making up an excuse where my fingers look weird or whatever. I want to fix that. It's a stupid thing. And now I'm telling everybody about it because I want it done and I want to fix it quick. And then I want to make sure I maintain that habit throughout the rest of the year. Goal 6, this is a memory type goal. I want to memorize scriptures and quotes and poems, 520 or more of them. And I want to do that using Anki spaced repetition. I have a really cool system that Thomas actually helped set up for me. It's a free tool you can use, and we can create a video on that if that's something you'd like. But it's called Anki, Anki, and it's an amazing little tool that does spaced repetition so that you can memorize a lot of things and not forget the things that you're memorizing.
That's ankiweb.net for anyone who wants to use that. So ANKI web.net.
And we'll include that in the resources section for you as well on the Funded Today website. Goal 7, I want at least 26 date nights so that I can spend more time with my wife. These are planned out date nights. And you'll see as I show you what January looks like, how this works. Why am I doing it? Because I want to connect deeper with my wife. Goal 8, we want to finish the book, Funded Today. And we want to continue podcasting and record 48 new episodes. That's 4 per month, 1 per week. Goal 9, I want inbox zero. I'm tired of having thousands of emails in my inboxes and not necessarily having a beautiful system for organizing. I want to go to bed every night and have nothing yanking my attention away from my other goals in the morning. I'm building a dream house. I'd like to travel to 6 places. You can see I've written out some different places that I want to go. I haven't been as specific yet on this one. And then I want to listen to 100 podcast episodes because I enjoy listening to podcasts. As much as I enjoy talking and teaching about things I've learned, the more I listen to other podcasts, the more I'm inspired to see what's going on now and hear what other people are doing who are more successful than me or doing different things than me, so that I can stay curious, so that I can still remain a voracious reader and listener and just a curious soul. I think that matters. And then these other goals, you can see I haven't set them yet, but because they're not exciting or relevant to my life right now. And I also have something as well that I would recommend people do. People I want to connect with deeper this year. And I haven't quite finished this list yet because it's just a new thought that came to me as we were planning this out, and I was telling Thomas about it. But I want to pick maybe 10 to 15 people in the world, probably my wife, probably Thomas on the list for sure, maybe my family, some brothers, a sister, but then a couple other people as well. And I want to try to connect deeper with them emotionally and at whatever type of level, so that I think that's what matters most in life, is being able to have relationships and connections with people. And I want to go for that. Now, here's what it looks like when you break down that monthly. And I do this every single month. So goal 1, read or listen to 3 books. If I'm going to do 36 in a year, I got to do 3. So here's the books I picked. And I've got a couple more in case I get ahead of myself. Here's my goal to weigh 185 pounds. Here's how I'm doing it. I'm doing intense cardio, high intensity interval training, 3 times or more per week for 30 minutes. I'm also doing weightlifting 3 times per week. And this is how I track it. And again, these aren't updated as of the podcast, but you can see how I go about updating it and typing these in. These are printed off as well. This is just the digital version that I'm sharing with you. Here's how you break down the revenue. You can see how specific I am. And when I write this goal down at the end of the month, I'll write where I'm at, and I'll do it in red if I'm behind, green if I'm ahead. Here's my random goal. This was just a random goal I had. I encourage everybody to have one like this. I hate paper, as I said earlier, and I want to make sure my desk and office and everywhere that I work is completely clean, because I've noticed I have way more inspiration and way more clarity and just get more things done when the only thing I have to worry about is what's in front of me on my computer screens.
So you want to keep everything clean, up to date, and organized going forward forever. So you want to apply the second law of thermodynamics.
You're going to have to explain it to some of our listeners, Thomas.
People can Google it. The second law of thermodynamics, it's entropy. Everything tends to disorder.
Yep. And that is absolutely true. That's the case with everything. And that's the accountability. You have to keep checking in and looking on things, or they all just return to chaos. Here's the goal on scripture reading, praying, pondering, meditating. I do it. I keep track for myself, and then I keep track for my wife. Days that I miss are read. It's just me. It's both. Here's the scriptures and different quotes and poems. You can see I've been updating it. I'm at 23 so far. And again, for those of you listening, you've got to get to the video version of this, because it'll make a lot more sense if you want these templates or whatnot. Here's the date nights.
That's at funded.today/podcast/goals.
Here's the date nights. We actually just barely planned it. Friday at 7 p.m. This Friday, we are doing our first date night, and we'll get the second one done before the end of the month, because you got to plan it out. That's what you do during your sessions. Ours are Sunday afternoons. You can do yours whenever. This is the initial rough draft, recording the podcast episodes. Thomas and I got this done. We are in the process right now of knocking those out. Inbox 0. You can see I'm doing bad on that, but I'm not too worried because I still got 2 weeks to get it right. You got to be real with yourself. Don't cheat. That's the other thing. It's like, oh, I did it. No, you didn't. It's either yes or no. There's no yellow or orange. It's green or red. Be honest with yourself. This will be to see if I save the amount of money I want to save for the dream home that I'm building. I went to Las Vegas, Nevada for CES. That doesn't really count as one of my travels because I've been there a million times, but I put it on there anyway. And then here's my morning routine right there for you, by the way. So I have 10 things as part of my morning routine. Praying, meditation, make the bed. Everybody says you make the bed. That's the first doing. That's the first action, and it gets you doing more things. I do some hot tea or lemon water every morning. I read a book. I read a religious book or one of my other books. Then I eat breakfast. Then I do some personal reading. Then I do some memorizing. Then I'm at the gym doing exercise with cardio and weights. And that is how I do it. Now for Thomas.
So before diving in, I want to share how I've set my goals. Recently, or a while back, I was talking to a good friend of mine who's a neurologist. And I was telling him how some things in my life I just do. right? They are a habit I just do every day. Whereas there's other things that I struggle with. Going to bed on time at the same time, getting up at the same time, right? And as I kind of mentioned, it was just whatever kind of happened, and I just went with the flow. I wasn't really creating my destiny. That sounds kind of strong, but I wasn't really creating my day how I wanted it to go. And he said something which actually has been so profound, and maybe this will help other people. And I think part of the difficulty is because as a business owner, you usually have more flexibility. There's things you need to get done, but it's not always right then or right there. I work from home. We're all remote. And so there wasn't as much of a schedule. And so he said something, and again, he recommended the book. And the book he recommended is called Superhuman by Habit. And the basic premise is quite simple. It's this. There are things that when you start doing or that you don't regularly do, you have to do it by willpower. And you only have so much willpower. So if you're trying to eat healthy for a week and it's just willpower to not eat that cookie or that brownie, then it's going to be pain. It's not going to be pleasant. And after a while, you're not going to have the willpower. So the whole premise is you focus on one thing at a time and you create a habit. Because then once you have a habit, it doesn't even take any willpower. You just do it. So my focus, or my overarching goal for the new year, for 2019, and I know we say you don't have to do it at the beginning of the year. It just so happened that some of these I started at the beginning of the year, but others I was already doing actually. You can see I did it substantially different. For 2019, I had my goals, and I have 12 goals. And the very first one is develop habits of prioritized focus, which is to say, I'm going to develop habits that whatever I'm working on, I'm going to be focused. And Zach could attest to you that last year I was not focused at all. We'd be chatting and I'd be somewhere else. And so my whole thing is I'm going to be present, whatever I'm doing. I'm focused and I'm creating habits to do that, but it's prioritized. So it's not like, hey, I'm going to be focused and I'm going to go watch Netflix. That's not my priority. I mean, it could be if that's what I'm planning on doing, but that every day I'm going to prioritize what I'm focusing on, and I'm going to be really focused on it, and I'm going to get it done. And that I'm going to create a habit to do this.
In the 17 days of this new year, there has been a remarkable shift because of his focus to develop habits of prioritized focus that everybody has seen, probably myself most profoundly. So it's a very good thing to do if this is your level of goal setting and this is where you need to be, because like Thomas said, once you set that habit and it just becomes natural, it's just something you do every day, like you eat, sleep, and wake up. And Thomas already has several things that are like that with him, where it's not even something he thinks about doing, he just does it. And it's shown in everything that he does in his life. I can attest to that.
Well, thanks, Zach. So for me, again, it's about habit. And you'll notice my goals aren't as specific necessarily. Some of them are, I'm just going to focus on this. So the second goal, to bed by 10 and up by 6 a.m. every day. And, I obviously needed some buy-in with my wife, because going to bed together, waking up together, kind of being on the same schedule. And it's been amazing doing this. It actually has substantially changed my day. Even though I don't need to, it's substantially changed my day, so I'm much more focused. So memorize 1,825 scriptures. I know that sounds maybe kind of crazy, but actually in the beginning of December, there was somebody who came and spoke, and I was very inspired, and he had actually memorized a lot of scriptures from the Bible and the Book of Mormon and other things. And I was so inspired, and I said, I'm going to memorize. And so I went and I got the Anki app and I started memorizing. And some of the first ones that I was memorizing, I already knew. So I started with 5. And so it just kind of stuck with 5, and I just keep doing that. And so that's also what I meant by saying sometimes you set your goals for the year, and hopefully you're not starting that goal or that habit at the beginning of the year, because you maybe won't be following through with it. But in this case, I had already started.
And this is what it looks like, by the way, too, if you want to see how it works. So this is the scripture in the New Testament, Acts 3:21. Whom the heaven must receive until the times of restitution of all things, which God has spoken by the mouth of all his holy prophets since the world began. Again, hard, good, easy. I have that one down pretty well. And then you pick it, and then you go. And then it would be on to the next one, and you'd go for it, and then you'd click show the answer, and then you'd memorize it, and you'd go back. And that is how it works. That's Anki in a nutshell.
So done with work before 5 p.m. every day. My wife likes it when I'm done. We have 3 young kids, and to be done. And so that is another goal. So 5, 6, and 7 is grow Amazon with our Amazon clients.
By the way, here's something you can see from Thomas's versus mine. See the loftiness? I thought my goals were big. We didn't compare goals. Look at the way Thomas sets his goals. He thinks and sees bigger than most. And because of that, he achieves bigger than most.
And for those listening, it's revenue from clients we're working with on Amazon to 5 million plus a year. We're working on some online courses, and that would be 5 million a year or more in revenue. And then kind of a traditional agency, meaning it's not Amazon, it's not crowdfunding or Kickstarter, Indiegogo. We're just helping people with their branding, with their marketing to do 5 million. And when I first set this goal, I put it to 1 million because I thought, what could we hit? But I realized if I put it to 5 million, and you notice I didn't put a billion on there, right? But I put it to 5 million because I know it's going to change the way I think about it and the urgency I feel about it and the way we approach it, the way I approach it. So number 8 is learn to always be kind, loving, and tender with Melanie and all my kids. Melanie is my wife. So working from home, if the kids are playing downstairs and they're yelling and they're screaming or they're coming in and interrupting me when I'm in the middle of a call, can be frustrating. So I can.
And again, accountability partner here. I'm with Thomas every day. I haven't seen one of those outbursts this whole year. So he's doing good on that goal.
Well, you make it sound like I was always outbursting when I was on.
Oh man, last year. No.
9. So there's a side project I'm working on, coined.com, which is basically a crypto site with live coin prices. And I'm working with some professors from Chicago, Stanford, Harvard to create the first crypto indices. So something I'm working on the side, and I want to launch that in 2020. Number 10, ever since 3rd grade, I've always had like this twitch in my right arm and my neck. I've always just kind of had it. And so I have a goal that I'm going to get rid of that.
And again, Thomas and I are practicing this thing called radical transparency because we think by sharing and talking more, it'll open up doors, because we've seen when we just share a little, it's opened up so many doors. So when we share a lot, we imagine more doors will open up. And I would encourage everybody to become a little more self-aware, to realize we all have idiosyncrasies and different things about us. And some of those things probably need to change, and other things are just part of us, and that's okay. And we can learn about those things from others, and hopefully people will be brave enough to share and not think that we'll get offended. And it will help all of us to become better, more well-rounded, holistic human beings.
What was really interesting as well is Zach had said, I don't want to bite my nails. And I said, I don't want to have this twitch in my right arm and my neck, which was also kind of interesting, right? It's kind of this little idiosyncrasy that we were both saying, hey, we're going to address, and totally independent. 11, record 48 podcast episodes. And then 12 is kind of a different goal, but have a listen to talk ratio of 2 to 1. So when I'm talking with others, with my wife, with my kids, with people I meet, with people at work, that I'm listening twice as much as I'm talking. And I'm still working on it. I've realized that in life, if you listen more and really understand, especially the people you completely disagree with, you'll actually learn a lot more. It's especially the people where you don't see eye to eye, or it doesn't make sense, or you disagree, because they know something or see something in a way you don't see. And that's what I want to do better this year. So those are my goals. So I have my KPIs, and my KPIs are more focused on behavior. So you can see, here's the top one. I would say, okay, this is for January. And then each day at the top, I have 1, 2, 3, all the way to 31, and I can tally it up. So was I up by 6? Yes or no? 1 or 0? Did I study scriptures before any work? Because if I don't study my scriptures or memorize my scriptures before I start working, I don't do it during work, and then I'm done with work, and then I don't read until I put my kids to bed, and then I'm looking at my phone using Anki at 9, and then I can't fall asleep at night. So I got to get that in first thing.
And Thomas prints these off, and then he updates them digitally at the end of each month. So he actually has these all filled out, and he just updates them so he has them front and center as a physical piece of paper rather than digitally.
Mm-hmm. So some of these you'll see I don't necessarily have goals, but they're part of my KPIs. So do I read or study 15 minutes from business books every day? Because I might go really deep into a book and spend a lot of time. So I'm not looking for volume, but really depth and learning the content. Now, number 7, I'll show you the tab for made and followed a prioritized to do for the day. And that's kind of part of my prioritized focus in terms of work. Do I spend at least 3 hours on Funded Today business development? Sometimes I'll go to work and it's just handling an issue here, a fire there, email, and it's actually not growing Funded Today. I want to spend at least 3 hours on business development. Number 9, or I guess number 8, or I guess they're not really numbered, but those are just the rows. Am I done with work before 5? Another thing, when I'm done with work, I put my phone completely away. So I don't look at text messages. Even if I'm very curious. So all the time, I'm like, oh, how fast does the Earth rotate around the sun? And I'll go research it, and I might get lost for 15 minutes reading about that, right? And so I don't do that, right? I completely put it away so I'm present with my family. The next, not impatient and didn't raise my voice with my wife, Melanie, or my kids. And doing these other things actually make it a lot easier, right? When I'm not on my phone, I'm not doing things that aren't my wife or kids. When I'm with them, I'm present. Another thing, and if any of you are into crypto, maybe this will help. I've invested a decent amount in crypto, we'll just say that. And I would sometimes spend a lot of time looking at coin prices, reading technical analysis and stuff. And it was just a waste of time, right? Because at the end of the day, especially with crypto, technical analysis doesn't even matter. It's its own beast. So my goal is like, I'm going to look at it for 20 seconds once a day, see what the price is, and that's it. And then next, do I have a listen talk ratio of 2-to-1? And then was I to bed by 10?
And Thomas, I came up with one more idea too. You may want to, once a week or something, again, in terms of accountability, ask your wife, ask me, ask others, how did I do? How am I at? And that way you can kind of have some self-awareness as well to see how you're doing and compare your rating versus what others may say and see how it translates.
I like that a lot. And actually, before I set these KPIs, I told my wife, I said, hey, come look at these. What do you think of these? Do you like them? Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? Do you think I should add stuff? Something I shouldn't have?
I think it's great.
And so if you go to the to-do tab, and this will finalize everything, this is, again, really simple. Some people might look at this and cringe. Other people might think, oh, this is kind of neat. And we've used Todoist, if you're familiar with that, todoist.com, which is a website where you can put stuff on. For me, it just didn't work, right? Each person's going to be different. But for me, I kind of just have a running tally in column B on this spreadsheet of things I need to remember to do. And then in column A, I prioritize what am I going to focus on. And that's my prioritized focus. So at the start of each day, before I work, and I've now created this as a habit, and I need to do better at making sure I kind of diligently follow it through, that I say, what am I going to focus on? And then I do those things. And really, if you do it right, whatever the first thing is, once you knock that out, you should feel so good that if you don't even do anything else for the rest of the day, you're good. And I love what you just did there, Zach, because I've just been deleting it, and I should probably have a column C and say completed and just strike it out. And that way I can see, here's what I've done. And it will just make it, you can see everything you did. And that's actually another mechanism, some of the stuff I studied in my master's program. When you feel stressed, everything you knock out, itemize it and see what you're doing.
And you create a snowball effect. When you knock things out, you are able to knock more things out. And that's the idea of the morning routine, because it creates momentum. And momentum allows you to get more things done in less amount of time than you ever thought possible. And then a feedback loop now that we've set this up for Thomas, he's going to be able to look back at the end of this year and be like, dang, I had a great year. Look at all the stuff I completed. Because it's all going to be right here for him.
I would say that's that for my goal setting and how I do things.
And by the way, that's another reason why I'm not worried about my inbox zero goal. You can see Thomas has it as a task. And so he's going to make sure that I don't screw that one up. It's right there in his list. All right. That is how to set and achieve goals like multimillionaires. I hope it was helpful. I hope you learned a lot. And I hope that you will actually go and do something now. Please don't just listen to this episode and continue on with whatever you've been doing. Take some massive action, write some goals down, create a morning routine, and you're 80% of the way there. Do everything else, and you're probably going to make Thomas and I look like just a couple little guys out there swimming around in this vast ocean, and you'll put us to shame. All right, Funded Today Nation, it is that special time of the episode again where we go over the Funded Today products of the week. My pick for Funded Today product of the week is the back pedal. This is a smart back pain device designed by a doctor of physical therapy. The device is really cool because what it does is, and it's a little bit unorthodox in how it works, but it works by helping the pelvis. And you might not know this, but did you know that the pelvis is the body's base of support? So if your base of support gets out of alignment, that throws everything else out of alignment. This device, the back pedal, aims to solve that problem. And I'm really excited about it. It's raised $75,000 so far. There's 8 days left at the time of this podcast recording. So by the time this episode goes live, if you hurry, you'll probably still be able to get one of the early bird discounts. Check it out, the back pedal. Thomas, what do you have?
My product of the week is the Crazy Cap. It sounds just like it's spelt, Crazy Cap. And it's a water bottle. I've never seen anything like this. It's a water bottle that actually has in the lid this battery, and you can tap it and it will purify your water. And it uses what's called UVC light. And that UVC light will then go through, and whether you're just getting tap water or even from a lake or from a river, you're able to purify the water and keep your water clean. Because if you're like most people who use a water bottle, it's kind of disgusting because often people use the same water bottle for a week or 2 weeks or longer without even washing it. So this way it helps This way it helps purify the water, helps your water bottle stay cleaner, and that's the Crazy Cap water bottle on Kickstarter. There's only 8 days left as of the recording. You should check it out, especially if you like to be environmentally friendly and not waste cups and paper. Get this water bottle.
Next time, we are answering one of the most asked questions and one of the most important questions, getting back to crowdfunding, and it's a doozy. Which crowdfunding platform is best? And which crowdfunding platform should I choose to launch my new invention on? Indiegogo or Kickstarter? You're not going to want to miss it, as some heads are going to roll. Seriously. So get off your butt, B-U-T-T-T, and your butt. But I've got this to do, but I've got this, but I've got that. And set some goals. If you already have goals, just implementing only 1 or 2 of the items we shared today is going to make you even more effective. And now just imagine if you implement and take action on everything that we've discussed. If you do so, Thomas and I guarantee this is going to be your best and your greatest year ever. Thanks again for listening. And remember, do not wait until tomorrow. Get funded today.
Funded Today is the worldwide leader in rewards-based crowdfunding on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Combined, they have raised over $200 million and counting for thousands of new ideas and inventions worldwide. If you've got an idea for a new product or invention, visit fundedtoday.com to speak with one of their experts.